Welcome to the No Fear podcast and the No Fear live broadcast. I'm your host, Tony Lauer. If you're into mindset training, performance psychology, personal development, you'll dig this new format. No Fear Live is a unique broadcast, and it's different from the No Fear podcast. We decided to go live because we wanted to create the opportunity to interact with people like you all over the world, where anyone can log in and ask questions, and in some cases, you may even get invited into the show. The great thing about the live broadcast is that it's much more personal for the listener. That's you. Remember, self-defense isn't always about a confrontation with someone else. The first and most important fight is winning the one inside your head. Ta-da! Mr. Lovell. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. Thanks for having me on, man.
Dude, I've said this to you personally and behind the scenes, but I'm like so blown away and impressed with what you've done with your whole organization, your company, your internet presence. And if I haven't made that clear, it's inspiring. Like guys like you are mentors in a spiritual sense for all of us. So thank you for all the stuff that you do, dude.
Thanks for that. And I appreciate you beating everybody up on the internet for my entertainment, because that's been immensely fun to watch. Way to go.
People live vicariously through me sometimes. I got a bunch of questions for you, but most of my audience, of course, and I want my audience, as you log in, guys, let us know where you're from, where you're listening from. We got people all over the world. Most of them will know who you are, and because we share some of the same community, right? Law enforcement, right, military, and so on and so forth. But just real quick, who's John? What's your background? I know it, but just share for people. We're stuck in an elevator, and I go, "What do you do, dude?"
Sure. I lead a movement called the Warrior Poet Society. The idea is to be fully lion and fully lamb. That means you're a good protector and fighter and warrior, but you're also pretty good at marriage and raising kids and being a decent human being to serve your country and God. And so the idea is to be a well-rounded person, so that we wouldn't just be good at war and violence, but we'd actually be good at life. There's freedom, and you want to win freedom and fight for freedom, but then you also want to enjoy freedom and use your freedom for something worthwhile, so that you can both live free and one day die well. And so that's Warrior Poet Society. I recently wrote a book that's the Warrior Poet Way, and so that's done well, national bestseller. So thrilled about that. That's something I've done, and I talk about former stuff that we've done before. We were missionaries for years. I went to school and got a degree that isn't worth anything. I spent time in the military, 2nd Range Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, and stacked up some combat tours there. I've been in the professional training world for quite a while, whereas Tony will focus, I guess you really hit law enforcement, military, and civilians. I focus more on the civilian world. That's where I'll major. Whereas I don't know whether you're minoring there or majoring there, Tony. I don't know. I
don't know either.
You should figure out.
I'm a Gatling gun, dude. You've become quite an adept businessman and entrepreneur in your old age. But I'm more like a Gatling gun. I'm making every mistake in marketing you can. I'm like, let's try this. And like rounds are firing all over the place. So
that's fun.
I should come out there and you teach me how to zero in a rifle and explain to me what sniper sharp avatars are all about. But
I kind of like the whole idea of accuracy by fire, volume. Accuracy by volume. You're not going to hit it right away. It's gonna, it's like I'm thinking of Jesse Ventura in Predator, where he doesn't know where the alien is, and so he just mows down the entire jungle. And there's a piece of that really resonates with my soul, and so I like that.
I love how I met you many, many years ago, and then we linked up. Was the first time we met at SHOT Show when
Yes.
we did that? Did I buy lunch or did you buy lunch? I can't remember. I think you bought me lunch.
I don't remember.
I think I owe you lunch then. But you had a camera with you back then. Were you when you knew? So my buddy Jack Carr. I don't know if you know Jack personally. But he knew he wanted to be a writer, like when he was, in the military. He loved writing and stuff like that. Did you know that you were going to be this art? Did you have this vision for warrior poet and the kind of the empire that you created? Was that always percolating in the back of the head? Because you were one of the first guys like walking around doing the interviews and doing the social media stuff.
So empire is way overly gracious, and
Nah,
it,
nah,
it,
nah, nah.
it suggests something that's just not true. I wouldn't think of myself as some amazing businessman or something, as you would put me forth. I think I'm just a guy with a message. I'm philosophical. I'm theological. I want to have conversations. I'm a communicator, right? And so yeah, I communicate, whether that's spoken word, whether it's standing up in front of an audience or instructing something with self defense orientation, or it's writing a book. I'm a communicator. And so a lot of the business stuff, I'll even outsource to guys who are more adept. And so I'll be able to check in with them, and I get my rap sheets and scorecards and maximize different stuff. And so I've got business degree and some strengths and there, but that's not really my focus. It's really more on content. It's on honest, open dialogue. It's about finding truth and singing it from the rooftops.
Wow. Put me in my place there, didn't you?
I didn't mean to
Yeah,
do that,
yeah,
but you're giving me too much credit, and I'm
right.
just kind of
And
like,
well, I mean, listen, one of the things on your stat sheet is 100 million views across social media streaming platforms. If we compare your empire, I use the term empire, your business, um, staff, revenue, reach, all the metrics, KPI, blah, 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 all the business lingo. If we measure that against, let's say, Amazon or Apple or whatever, you don't have an empire. But I'm talking like in the tactical space. What you're doing is significant. I've
well,
been
thank you.
around. I've been around for decades, and I run a very uh, successful boutique, but our reach isn't anywhere like yours. So for me, compared to me, you're running an empire, or you're on your way there, and it is a mindset, right? And it is a mindset. Um,
Well, thanks.
you're
I
up.
think you're being gracious, but thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well, no, it's cool, man. I mean, listen. While you're talking, I'm raptured by the cadence and pace, and the language and the words you choose. So I'm going to listen back to this, because I'm already like learning stuff, but I don't know what I'm learning, right? I'm going, oh wow, listen to John speak, because I've never been to one of your sermons. I'm like, I'm like, that was in a minute there. That was very cool. Let's pivot and go back a little bit. How long did you serve for?
Not a long time. I was in Ranger Battalion for 4 years. I did 5 tours in that time, and then I got out, moved on with my life. Some dudes are military men, and I was a man that was in the military, and so I think the Lord brought me on a path where I did a lot of varied different things. And so that was probably to protect me. If you're in the military for a very, very long time, it's extremely difficult to make a shift back into a civilian perspective. And so it's become quite a strength where I can jump into a more of a tactical mindset. And I did enough fighting in my combat tours, and then martial arts later, and wrestling before, and then I've been in the tactical training space for quite a while now. Not nearly as long as you, but a decade or so,
Right.
almost. And so anyway, you kind of put all that together, but then done business stuff and missionary stuff and public speaking stuff and writing. And so being able to, the word I have for me is balance. I believe a man is successful. I think the success of a man is predicated on 2 variables. One, what are the priorities that you set? And then the second one is, how well do you balance between those priorities? And so I, more than anything, want to be a man of balance. And so that's kind of my past as well, underscores that, which, there you go.
What, so, the whole, let's talk work-life balance, it's a buzzword. It's, the whole, like, does that exist for you? Or I can only imagine that you're pulled in many, many directions because you've got multiple irons in the fire. I mean, not even a good word as irons in the fire, I think, has a connotation of things in development. You've got, you know, the missionary work, the writing work, the speaking work, the tactical training. You've got a YouTube channel, which is like could be a full-time business for anybody. All of these different verticals in your company. How do you create or find balance for that?
I demand it. So I say no to a lot. I outsource a bunch of things that I can and offload stuff. I've got good team that are competent and self starts. And no, I mean my family. If you ask that of like if you ask my kids, is Daddy there? They're like, oh yeah, me and Dad we're doing stuff all the time. And so building
Wow.
good memories, and same with my wife, of no, I'm balancing my life. Now with that, sometimes you got work sprints, and that means, baby, hey, listen, the next 2 weeks are going to be nuts. And she's
Right.
like, I know, you've been warning me. And then it's a 2 week sprint. And then on the backside of that, I'm going to take her to a cabin for a few days, and we're going to hang out and make some memories and stuff. And so, no, if I'm not on a mad sprint through life. I'm not chasing greatness. I would rather settle into something that's far more palatable and respectable, and that'd be goodness. And goodness only comes through balance.
Very interesting. Get my brain going, man, because I'm like like, and I'm 63. I've been around the block a little bit, the rodeo. I feel like my 2 week sprint has been like a couple of decades now, and I gotta really think about that. Having said that, I think you got to find inspiration in the message, and then apply that to yourself. Because I can also put my phone down and go away. I can, in the middle of the day, go, I'm going to go for a walk in nature
Yeah,
right now. I need
that's
to
great.
break. And so for anyone listening to that, it's really about the message, not about mirroring the exactness of a schedule. But
Yeah.
speaking of schedules, um, what is your are you one of those guys? I get up at freaking 5 a.m. I'm punctual. I'm this and that. Like, what's your routine like?
I am punctual. However, I definitely do not subscribe to the wake up really, really early. And that's
Right.
because I value my marriage so highly that for me to wake up at 4 a.m. to start grinding, or I'm going to go work out and like, for 2 hours, and then I'm going to do whatever, like,
Right.
yeah, that time and that energy comes from someplace. And
Hmm.
what I end up doing is I rob my kids and my wife of time, of like me and the missus, after we put down the kids around 8:30 or 9 o'clock. Then it's husband wife time, and we hang out and do whatever we're going to do for at least an hour or so, and then we hit the hay. And so I'm waking up. Sometimes it's a little after 6. Sometimes it's right on 7. So it's somewhere in there. And if I have really early string of mornings, then I'll sleep in one day in the week.
Hmm.
And so just kind of doing that. But again, of like, I don't live to work. Work is something that I do that's really important. But again, balancing my relationships. I don't want to rob my wife of important time together at
Do
night.
you have, you exude an eerie calm. Uh, that's a compliment. It's just the very measured, very focused. Were you always like this, or is this like? Did you have some sort of epiphany in the last few years, and you went, you know what? Enough of this chaos and this is what we're doing, and use the word demand earlier. I like that. It's powerful. Um, so I don't know if you.
I'm not an eerie calm. I think I am right now, and you're picking up on that. Maybe when we hang out, maybe I just relax around you. But if you excite my wrath on something, you and me will be shoulder to shoulder talking about how craptastic society is and how evil everything is, and
Right.
whether they're butchering up little kids or babies or doing some horrible sex trafficking, whatever, censorship. I will come off that. I am an intense guy. And so, yeah, I would like to be more chill because I see chill people and I'm like, man, I bet everyone likes you. Not everyone likes me. Everyone seems to go into the camp of they really like me or they really hate me. And I don't have a lot in between. And so, but I look at chill people and I'm like, that must be pretty nice. You know,
Interesting.
but
Interesting.
I think I'm chill and in my element here because we got trust, we're friends, and we're talking about stuff, and I think we'll probably agree on everything. And you'll be talking about your craft, and I'll be over here taking little notes and stuff. And so I'm in a chill moment, but I'm an intense dude.
Yeah. No, I dig that, and I've experienced some of that vicariously online. Let's talk, because you lit up a little bit there. Let's talk, and I made a couple of notes here, and I'm jumping ahead, but you've been incredibly active and vocal about the shit show that is the USA and the world, and the stuff like that. So let's talk two levels. One, how did the censorship on YouTube, Instagram, all that impact you emotionally, psychologically from a business point of view? And then how did you figure out what you were going to do to circumvent that? Because a lot of people decided, well, I won't say anything ever, so that way I won't be shadow banned, right? Anybody who tries to tag me now 3 years later, are you sure you want to tag Tony Blauer? He constantly violates our community rules, and like it's just nonstop. I know that you've experienced all of that, but so the first thing is, like, as a provider, you go, holy shit, like, we can't, this is affecting how I monetize or how I reach people or whatever. And then at some point you said, you know what, I'm going to find a way to still get my message out. And so talk a little bit about that.
So it's been quite a bunch of trial and error because the algorithms keep changing. There was the Adpocalypse of September of 2017 where they really shut the door on influencers on YouTube. And so if you were big already, then they kind of let through, but they start crushing everyone else down. And then but we were already at 100,000 followers or so back in 2017 or so. So we were kind of big enough, but the smaller channels got crushed, and they redid the algorithm where it's like, hey, where'd my views go? Right now, though we're 1.4 million followers on YouTube, not quite there, but almost, we are hitting our monetization amount. How much money do we get from that? And how many views are we getting from that? We're back at 2018 level. Back in 2018, that's what my money is like. Even though my following is much, much, much larger. I'm like 5-6 times bigger, but my views are lower and my money is gone. Of like, what happened there? And it's obvious. It's not that all of a sudden I became a horrible communicator or I wasn't saying stuff that people cared about. It's that they just rob you blind. They censor you. They see me as an ideological virus that they quarantine and then choke out little by little. So my following stops remembering that I'm even there. And they're watching half-naked girls, twerk on TikTok or whatever, or their stupid cat videos or comedy sections or whatever else. They just kind of slowly convert our audience over to more time-wasting thing rather than stuff that's impassioned and logical and catalytic for changing lives and reinvigorating masculine heart and urging people to become harder to kill and more useful human beings and men. And so all of those things, all the things I call good, the lefties who control big tech call bad. And so they've started censoring. Now, for a while, I thought of like, okay, play a game a little bit more, and the idea is I want to reach more people to promulgate our message. So if I just avoid don't shoot full auto guns, and that was the thing. I'm like, all right, I won't do that. And then it's, hey, don't do this other thing. And then they kept moving the line so you can't do more and more. And now you can't really talk about anything. So I could be like, I could just shift into entertainment only. I'm like, no, wait. This is truth, and the stakes are really high, and freedom is dying in the public square, and people are enslaved quite literally, and there's all kinds of crimes against humanity happening. And I've been given a platform to steward, and so that I could make money, I will self-censor. Screw that. I will go down with the ship. If the answer is, oh, you will have less views and make less money, then I'm like, great, sign me up. I will make less money, but I will speak the truth, and I will not self-censor. And as long as I have a microphone and someone can hear it, it'll be far less people. Screw it. I'm going down with the ship. Now, we also don't want to just be brave and do the right thing, but we want to be smart. And so we've put significant time over the last few years, 4 or 5 years, into developing a powerful website. So YouTube can't, if YouTube just shut us down, like Instagram and Facebook is effectually done already. If they just shut us down, are we out of business? Well, I'm like, well, we have a powerful website, Warrior Poet Society website, and we have a big email list. If you have an email list, now you have your following. If you don't have the email list, you don't have your following. And then we've have a training company, and now we got the book, and we've got our streaming service and app, so people can tune in there. So we have our own content on our app, and so all of that does stuff to mitigate, so we can control our own content, have our audience, so it's not YouTube or Facebook's audience. And so that's taken a lot of time, and we're still on that path. But really, the censorship stuff has hurt. We're making less, certainly. And that's, we had to tighten up, and that's just censorship. They desire to put us out of business, and they have a plan to, and they're doing it. So
it's kind of nuts, and it disturbs me. I'm every day. Here's a personal question. Everyone else, shut your audio for a second. This is just between John and I. Just kidding. You can listen too. I have a constant depression cloud walking around. Like, I'm really sad for society. I feel like do you think there's going to be some big frickin' like every science fiction movie that I watched when I was like in the 70s, 80s, 90s there are elements of it come true. I'm like, holy moly, look at this. This is actually happening.
yeah.
And I think about it, I go like, hey, we peaked in the 80s and 90s as a civilization, just in terms of all this stuff. And now it's this new world order. Is everyone, like how is it with everything that went on with can I say the V word on here, or does some algorithm pick that up? Everything that happened in the last 3 years, how is it that there's not Nuremberg 2.0 yet? There's so much evidence, but I go, well, the reason nothing's happened is because everyone in power was in on it, or there's so much dirt on everyone in power by some other people that nobody can say anything because someone's going, hey, look at this flight log, look where you were, look at these videos we have of you. And because how is it that people aren't hanging for what happened? And I'm sad. I'm sad as a dad. I'm worried about my kids. I'm worried about their kids. I guess what I'm asking you is, like, for me, there's a part of my day every day where I think about this, because just being on social media or email or seeing stuff, I'm reminded that there is this extreme censorship, that there is this agenda, and nobody's doing anything about it. And I don't mean you or me. I'm talking about like there was a time where if you were a politician and you lied and you did that, like the media was going to come after you and expose you. But now they own the media. Big Pharma owns the media and the government. Everyone, what's happening and where do we go? Or is this done? And it's really just do the best you can till the end of your time.
Yeah. I'd love to be optimistic, but you're wrong. It's all going down. Look right here, right now, every person in the United States thinks one of the top 2 presidential candidates should be in prison for crimes. They should be in prison. So it's like half the country thinks Trump should be in prison, The other half thinks Biden should be in prison. Biden, who owns the government now, and his Justice Department is literally prosecuting his front running competitor for a presidential race. That's banana republic stuff. That is the end of the free society we know it. It's just right there. It's plastered up. And how anyone could look at that and not come to the obvious conclusion that we are sitting on a powder keg and things are going to get worse. Well, that is willful naivety. It's not optimism. It's something far more brazenly stupid than that. You're just wrong. And so buckle up and make plans. For my part, I'm with you, Tony. I'm sad. I'm sad about it. And when I'm not sad about it, I'm angry about it. Because this is foul play. This is evil, corrupt stuff that all these political leaders that should be holding the line for us, took the briefcases of money, and somehow, though we know what their salaries are, 150 grand, 200 grand, they all are multi millionaires with multiple houses and private jets. Almost all of them. And is the Justice Department going to do it? Who guards the guards? The guards are complicit and hopelessly corrupt, and they're the real people pulling the thread. And so, what we're witnessing is the final coming apart of our society. No nation lasts forever. There's really no ancient empires that still exist to this day. Egypt doesn't have pharaohs anymore. They have their own governments, and so even if you retain the name, no nation lasts forever. And in the course of republics or democracies, we're about as old as they usually get, right? Right here. And that's about as old as you get. And now you see of just basic, what of the Bill of Rights, what of our sacred Constitution is left? Of the First Amendment, we have the right to assemble and have free speech, and our freedom of the press and freedom of religion. And what have we seen lately? They locked us down so that we couldn't assemble. They censor us so we have no free speech. They shut down our religions and took them out of schools and fined us if we ever met together. All of our liberties are literally under the most blatant attack, and we're all just asleep at the wheel, wondering what Lizzo is doing in the public scene right now, and just distracted by all these circus games while freedom is bleeding out in the public square. We can't survive it. We won't. And so that sucks, but I'd rather face the reality so that I could make plans on it. And it also helps you of I am saddened by it like you are, and I am angry by it like you are, but ultimately I'm thrilled that my ultimate faith and hope isn't tied to this fallen rock of a planet Earth. My hope isn't in political leaders, and anybody that knows me knows that I'm an adamant follower of Jesus. I believe God became a man, came to earth, forgives of sins, and I'm not going to preach the gospel to a bunch of people that don't want it, but truly, that's where I am. I think I'm just passing through this rock of an earth, and I'd like to hold out hope that I found in the past and convert to where my hope really actually is. So there you go. That's how I survive it. And so we got peace and meaning and purpose, and we're doing very well. But the world won't be, and it's going to get worse.
Amazing answer, man. Amazing answer.
Thanks.
So people listening to this, who I know anyone listening to my show resonates with all of that. They're in alignment. What are things that you're noticing when people are reacting to your book through emailing and messaging you, or comments on I know the rule, never read the comments on YouTube, but the positive ones, if they get through to you, what are you seeing from the perspective of fear? I mean, that's a big thing. It's the name of this podcast, No Fear Live. This idea, my hypothesis is that if we change our relationship with fear, we can change our mind. And if we can change our mind, we can change our day, and therefore continue our algorithm, right? We've now, we are now adapting and stress inoculating in real time to what's happening. So we can thrive in the chaos. What are you seeing from your audience, and what are the questions they're asking you? And I know you're you're very, very humble, and it's legit. But you're a leader, right? You're a leader of families. You're a leader of men. What are the fears that people are bringing to you, and how are you guiding them with that stuff?
Sure. Yeah. Fear is in my book. I devote a full chapter to it right off the bat of it's battling the inner coward.
Mm,
Because for my part, of like fear, it's not like I don't feel fear. I feel fear about 100 different things that'll crop up. And here's a fallacy with fears: people feel like one is brave people are in a different class altogether, as if like when the weather's cold they don't feel it, when there's
right.
pain they don't feel it, and that is absolutely not true. Courage is just doing the right good thing when you are afraid, and I think all your followers are going to know that it's what you do when you're afraid that matters. So battling that inner coward of I think there's a lot of different tools, and I have a lot to say about that, and I know you do too, but some of those fears we already talked about, like, well, what if I do get just kicked off and censored? What if I go to jail because of what I'm saying? Of like that stuff is happening. Um, of there's the what ifs are fears, and I just have to battle against them whenever they pop up. There's also a fallacy of like, because you managed fear well in one area of your life,
Mhm.
say that's thugs in a back alley, doesn't mean you're not going to be courageous to talk to the pretty girl. You could be an absolute hero in one area and a coward in the other. You're brave enough to run into a hail of gunfire, but you are not brave when it comes to striking out and starting a business. Too terrifying. You can't do it. And so, what I've noticed about fear is it's not like you ever arrive with it. And you can play a hero in one area of your life and a coward in the next. And just because you've been a hero in the past doesn't mean you're not going to be a coward in the future. Every single day, you got to pay the piper. Every single day, you got new fears, and you can react to them in unpredictable ways. And that was a bit of a bummer for me because I got in some gunfights and scary situations and did very well. And then something else would come up, and then I didn't do very well. And I'm like, what the? I thought I was over this. And then, something else would happen. I'm like, all right, there we go. Now I'm on it. That went well again. And the next one, it's like, oh, that went okay-ish in your own little personal after action reviews. And it's like, man, you never really conquer fear. You never really slay the dragon. You just keep it at bay.
Dude, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because a lot of people, particularly guys who have a martial art background or a military background or a combination, or guys have been guys have been groomed through, whether it's a media or growing up or whatever, coaches, that there's this whole no fear, and that's where we want to go. The bravado of no fear. I fear no man. And I go, for someone who has no fear, you're sure pounding your chest about how you're not afraid of anything,
That's a good point.
right?
That's a good
And
point.
and
Telling.
and so there are a couple of things that I wrote. I wrote down some notes here that I loved what you said. One of the things in our No Fear program, we tell people you can't be brave if you're not afraid. That the
Mm,
primary ingredient of courage is fear. It's an organic ingredient that if you see anybody, you watch something on TV, a fireman, a police officer, a courageous bystander, and you look and you're watching that event and you say, wow, I wonder if I could have done that. That's fear. If you wonder if you
mm,
could do that. So imagine everyone on here, and I'm sure you've got some firefighters watching us. You're at home and there's somebody showing, like on the news, fire breaks out and they show the firemen running into the building. If your kid says to you, Daddy, are you brave enough to do that? You're going to say, yeah, that's what I do. You don't know I'm a fireman? Like, I'm a fireman. That's what I do.
mm.
In other words, you forget the stress inoculation that it took you to run into the burning building. And uh, this concept of there is no fear, and no fear is ridiculous. So I'm glad you brought that up. And it's this constant, it's like a roller coaster ride where you're learning to manage fear. And if there's a certain moment or event that you just like the universe unfolded on your behalf and you just were a unicorn, like you can't replicate that every day. And
Yeah.
so, that's one of the big kind of like epiphanies, big fancy word for light bulb moments I had in putting this together was the idea that uh, most education was around fear as arousal, as a physiological or neurobiological thing. And very few people, if any, were talking about the psychology of fear, like what
Right.
fear makes you do. And what fear does is it discourages you. And this is a neat play on words, and I don't have this set up to do this, but in our classes, I'm going to share this with you and everybody here. I'll write down the word courage on a whiteboard, and then I'll ask everybody, what is the opposite of courage? And they use the term, cowardice. And I go, cowardice is a very powerful word, and it's good to help leverage you into, I don't want to be a coward. But in explaining the psychology of fear, I explain, and what I do is I turn around, John, and I write the letters DIS in front of the word courage with a hyphen. And now suddenly, if everyone's visualizing that, when I step away from the whiteboard, it says discourage. What I've noticed, and this is a very subtle point, that we often know what to do or what to say to do the right thing. And then our fear discourages us from doing the right thing. We start to manifest this movie in our mind that, well, if I don't put up a black square on Instagram, people are going to think I'm this, right? If I don't toe the line, if I don't give in, if I don't work. And it's, so anyways, little rant there, but I'm so glad that you said that, because that's the message people need to hear. And I use the same example too, where I know guys that have been in gunfights, but they can't have a normal conversation with their son or their wife.
Right.
And they can't manage that fear in that area. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm so glad that we are literally mirroring ideology.
Yeah. That's great.
Do you, with respect to the interactions that you have, like for me, I think about it as a provider, as a protector, and it bothers me sometimes, to be totally transparent, that I'm worried about the economics of the business. Like when things got shut down, all of my business was live training, and all of the people I train, law enforcement, military, which was, we talked earlier about majoring in this and minoring in that. I major in training law enforcement, military. Well, in the beginning of the summer of love and the peaceful protest season, everyone stopped training, and I almost lost everything I'd worked for. Here I am, 60 years old, going like zero money coming in. Well, wait a minute. We had two main verticals: our training division and then our high gear division. Well, we still have high gear, except that all of the people that did the training were the ones that bought the gear. So both faucets were shut off at the same time.
Tough. Yeah.
And it got super scary. And suddenly what went through my head, and this is what I'm sharing here, what went through my head was, we have no money coming in. I have no money coming in. I can't feed my family. I can't provide for my family. Then it went to, oh my God, I'm gonna have to sell the house. Where are we gonna live? What are we gonna do? And it was like this 24 hours of this insanity, like fear, this fear storm. And I gave myself 24 hours to be an inner coward, right?
Yeah.
And just like dance.
I like that.
Right?
I totally respect that.
Yeah. And bro, the next day I called up my team and I said to them, you can't solve a problem if you are the problem. You need self-awareness to get out of your way. I called my team up. I said, look, I'm gonna be really blunt for you. I'm gonna say this with let's go. But inside I'm scared to death. If we don't figure out how to pivot, we're gonna lose everything. Yeah. So guys, in a couple of days, we're gonna have another meeting. Any idea? Everything's good. Don't go, oh, Tony won't like this. What would you do? And we ended up like rebuilding the company and making it through stuff with several programs, online, digital, live through Zoom and all that. What was interesting is many of the things that we built should have been built before, right?
Yeah.
We're like, why didn't we have this before? What was your experience at that moment there? And now, and also two-part question: when people are asking you for guidance through like responding, because your message, there's nothing like that opening introduction was classic. I mean, it was just beautiful, and everyone should listen to it again, because it's just a checklist for excellence. And so the two things: what was happening with you when it looked like the end of the world, with your business and how you handled all of that, and now moving forward, what are people asking you? Like, John, I'm super scared about this, and you're going, it's the same message in the book. It's the same thing in the first 6 chapters. Like, get your house in order, get your mind in order, get your body in order, be a human weapon, be ready to go. So,
when thinking about how to counsel someone, because your question was two-part.
yes.
Your question was two-part of like, all right, how did I weather the storm of COVID insanity, and then what advice do you give to people? With advice to people, it's like, I would like to get a handle on what's causing you to have that pain point. What are you fearful of, and then why are you fearful? And so once you have that, so for instance, you cited somebody running into a burning building of like, I don't know if I could do that, and then I could say, well, what if your little baby girl was in there? Of like, oh hell yeah, I'm going in right now. Of like, they're ready to charge the building, and you're like, well, see, perfect love casts out all fear. So the idea is you're fearful in this other areas because we don't really actually have enough love. Well, love casts out all fear, and so like, oh well, there's a great antidote for fear. The only soldier that jumps on the grenade is the one that loves his buddies the most. That's what happens. It's not that he was brave. It's that he really loved his buddies that much. And so there's all kinds of antidotes for fear. That one's the best one. But there's all kinds of other ones of like, I have some guys that are just turning like, well, you need to get mad about this. I'm like, get mad? I'm like, yeah, you get pissed. I'm like, "Rah!" And then they can't even feel their fear anymore. And it's not necessarily the one I advocate the most, but hey, rage can be really, really useful in a pinch. You just Hulk smash, and that can go pretty darn good. And I like to install fury buttons in dudes in self-defense kind of areas. I'd like you to be able to flip a switch and go and just see red and then calm down the moment you want. So you're not the Hulk a minute longer than you want to be. Bruce Banner in perfect control over the monster. And I'm like, that's what I like. And so, so for me to be able to counsel somebody that's wrestling with fear, I just used what I just said as a case in point example of like, I'd want to know what specifically they're afraid of. A lot of times it's just running at what you're afraid of like, oh, you're afraid of heights? Well, you're going skydiving. Oh, you're cramped spaces? Splunking it in. Just don't give it a foothold. How dare you make me afraid? Run at what scares you. The only way you'll possibly grow is by running at the thing that you're afraid of. That's it. And I know that's something that you teach often and better than I am, but I'm just giving a nod of the cap to what do you tell other people? Now with COVID, the very first month, I was scared. I was scared for me, my fellow man, and my family, and I'm a guy who's pretty prepared, and so I already had hazmat suits and NPA 95 masks. I stocked them. So I have food. I'm ready. I can just completely pull out, but I'm scared for everybody else. And I'm like, what is this thing? And so the very first month I was scared, and it's just the uncertainty. I didn't know what this was. And I heard about huge body counts of, folks kicking off, and it's everywhere. In month 2 though, a lot of fear dissipated in that I'm being told that this is killing everyone, but I've never met anyone that's died. I haven't even heard of anyone I knew. And then that stayed true for almost a year. After a full year, I only knew one person that had died with COVID. And I'm like, the big problem with COVID wasn't COVID, it was the fear of COVID. We were trying to adopt, this hurt real bad because we were trying to adopt a little baby girl. And so we had paid all this huge amounts of ransom fees. That's what I call them now, tens of thousands of dollars. And we got our home studies complete, a arduous process that's probably equivalent in paperwork to getting a PhD. It's so ridiculous. And we had a crib ready and an upstairs room, and we were ready to adopt. And we had cases coming through that were saying, yeah, that, and writing our letters, and we're ready to adopt a baby girl. But when COVID broke out, all the would-be mothers became afraid. And because they were afraid, they murdered their own children instead of putting them up for adoption. So what we saw was lots of cases, the fear of COVID broke out, and then all the cases disappeared. And we spent 2 years in the lurch, just pining for little cases as they would come out. But we knew what had happened. All the fearful mothers murdered their children. And so we eventually... that season ended and that door closed, and we didn't ever adopt. Still love to, but that's an open wound. That still hurts. That
Wow.
bleeds. So anyway, that's the power of fear in women's lives. It used to be that men were the ones that killed the most amount of people. Now it's women. Women are the great scourges in terms of women are killing more people than men now. Now it's been men for all of human history, so I'm not throwing stones at the gals as much of like men, women, or anything. I'm just mentioning the fact that we're murdering our young in the name of convenience. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah, this is guys. Aren't you glad you tuned in today? This is a very happy podcast. It's insanely deep, and it's stuff that you got to talk about and you got to think about. And I don't know if it was Fitzgerald who said, the ability to weigh two different thoughts in your mind, opposing ideas in your mind is a true sign of intelligence. So whether you believe in God or not, or something else, or you are pro or anti-abortion or whatever the lingo is, it's an important topic. It's an important conversation to think about and not shirk your responsibility.
Yeah, and thanks for that. And people disagree, and man, I'm great with disagree. That's fine. Let's have a conversation. Let's have a logical conversation.
Yeah.
Tell me how that's not a living baby. Tell me how that's not a human life. I'd love to hear how that's not a human life and you're not killing it. But I'm just saying, if like people disagree, and if you're listening in and you disagree with some stuff I said, that's cool, man. I don't know if I agree with 100% of what I say either. So still working stuff out,
Right. And that's an interesting point, is I also, when you're giving examples of fear and fear management and going, hey, Bruce Banner, Hulk, friggin', we call it indignation, you call it, rage. And it's like, hey, there's a time to hit that indignation button, because indignation brings up the idea of like, how fucking dare you? Like after 9/11, this country felt indignation. Like I've broken my hand because of rage, but never because of indignation.
That's good. It's a little bit more controlled feeling than rage.
It's controlled anger.
I like that. That's a good semantical nuance. That's a good distinction. All right.
And that's what we want to do. And I loved like almost everything you said about how you guide people for self-defense and in the fear. I love that you did bring up the idea that love, that true or pure love. I forget the adjective you used. Perfect love, was it?
Yeah, perfect love casts out all fear.
Yeah.
That means if I really love someone as I should, and then that'll throw out fear.
And what's interesting, everyone listening knows, our Be Your Own Bodyguard program, a one-day course where I guarantee people you'll be safer in a day. And martial artists go like, that's bullshit. And I go, you're unconsciously substituting safer in a day with learning jiu-jitsu in a day, learning how to box in a day, learning Krav. That's impossible, but I can teach you how to use a shotgun and say the right things behind a door. And if that person still comes in, shoot. But that doesn't mean you're a SWAT operator, or you understand CQB, or that you'd be good in a shootout. But I can teach you in an hour how to use a fire extinguisher. You're not a fireman. So you can make people safer by teaching them some principles. But the perfect love, I wanted to talk about that for a second. guys, for certain people that don't have a more spiritual um, experience in their life, and this is another observation when people ask me questions, what about this, what about that, I go, what was important to you when you were 10 years old changed when you were 20, changed when you were 30, changed when you were 40. If you don't have any kids, everything changes the day you have a kid. If you never have your own business, you work for somebody else, everything changes that next day. So where you use love or where you use indignation or rage is going to change as you mature, as you evolve, as you are able to weigh and consider risk and reward. But I want to go back to the love thing, because I'll ask in our Be Your Own Bodyguard class, I'll say to the group, how many of you would fight Albert DeSalvo? And the people are like, who's Albert DeSalvo? And I go, oh, maybe I should use his stage name, the Boston Strangler. And you're like, oh, I know that name. Did you know he raped 2,000 women? Did you know he got bored of that and then murdered another dozen and then raped them after? What a psycho. How many of you could take him in a fight? And everyone in the room is like, all these women. And I say, how many of you have kids? All of them have kids. I go, you come home and there's somebody about to molest or rape your kids. What do you do? And the room goes berserk, John.
Yeah.
They're like, I will rip his heart out. I will tear his eyes out. I'll go, where did you get your black belt in 60 seconds? Because 60 seconds ago, you weren't doing anything. And people realize, oh, indignation, perfect love. Like I will charge that bullet to protect you because of that. But it's I want to kind of flip this and get deeper into your book, because the title, when we pop it up here, I'll stick it to the stream again. People can't see all of the the subtext under the Warrior Poet way, but it says a guide to living free and dying well. A guide to living free and dying well. So I want to. I mean, it's not provocative. It's one of those things that grabs you, because most people really don't want to die, right? And so this idea of going, how do you die well? What does that mean? And so I want to, again, just grab the mic and rant and go wherever you want. Talk a little bit about, like, that title was, you probably sat there and maybe you didn't, maybe you just had like a moment, right, where you went, this is it, like, this is the title. But where you sat there and you're, a meticulous writer and thinker, what do I want people to read and think about that's going to make them open this book?
Sure.
Talk about the book a little bit more, and the titling of it, and what do you want people to get out of it?
The point of life, the purpose, guys, is not to live as long as humanly possible with no pain and max comfort. That's not it. Well, what you'll do is live a reactionary life. You're just kind of falling in the neurological ruts of, hey, there's my 9 to 5, and here's what I'm doing, and this is just how my life is arranged. I didn't really sign up for it, but this is how I'm living. And you desire not to have, great controversies or pains or any of this stuff. But what can happen is you can wake up in 30 years from now and look back and say, you know what? I did not make my life count for anything. I didn't live for a purpose beyond myself. I watched a lot of Netflix, played some video games, worked some jobs, had a couple good vacations, and you'll realize that you have squandered your life. The goal is not to live as long as you can. The goal is to make your life count for something. So whether you die tomorrow or you die in 30 years, you can go out with your boots on, brother. You can go out knowing that your life actually mattered and there were lives attached to it that actually made a difference. And guess what? That's not going to happen accidentally. You're not going to accidentally fall in that. That is absolute purpose, where you're seizing your life by the coattails and you're resisting the tyranny of the urgent, which would cloud out all the most important stuff in your daily schedule. and you are finding and forcing a life where you live well. And if you live well, the crown is you get to die well. A lot of people can't die well. They fear death, and it's because they have unfinished life. I want to be able to be ready to die at any moment. And this is where it gets real spiritual as well. And you've heard the expression, there's no atheists in foxholes. And that's because what I've found in my combat tours and in close fights is as soon as people fear for their life, everyone gets real spiritual. They start questioning. And those questions unanswered, when you haven't answered the hardest questions of life, of like, where in the world did all this stuff come from? What's the point of all this stuff? What am I here for? What is right and wrong? And does that really matter? In 1,000,000 years from now, will our paltry works here on earth matter at all? Will there be any remembrance? Is there a God that will even arbitrate? These are the questions of like, did I make up with this relationship that's did I tell my wife that I love her? Did I take care of her? Those are the questions that when you fear for your life, those are the things that can creep up the back of your spine, grab your brain and cause you to freak out because you're not ready to die. You're not ready to fight for your life. And maybe you didn't even do the harder philosophical work of saying what is worth dying for and what is worth living for. These are the questions that people don't feel like they're relevant to gun and knife fight, and they are. This is the stuff that will steal your heart in the moment when you should be acting courageous, but instead you're wrestling with questions that you should have been answered when you were doing Netflix stuff or video, whatever. You're just wasting your life away. I don't want that to happen. And so there's a better way. There's a warrior poet way. And that's the journey I'm on. And I've found that if you face your own death long enough, you learn something looking into the abyss. You learn something about that. And so I invite guys to go on that journey with me.
That was wild. Well, Todd Peters is going on that. Check this out.
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate it.
Right? And everyone else go do that. Your website, what's the best place to get the book?
You can go to thewarriorpoetway.com. It's a redirect, so you end up going to the Warrior Poet Society web. It all goes to the same place. So warriorpoetsociety.com, thewarriorpoetway.com. Any of that stuff's great. Nice.
Man, honestly, I'm going to watch this episode again. I had goosebumps during your last sermon in the last 5 minutes.
Do you call everyone's stuff sermon? Am I too preachy, man?
Not at all, bro. Not at all, man. But I mean the feedback, the impact. Here's Michael's in Spain, I believe. I always remember Spain or Portugal, Spain. Just some really good feedback, from people reacting to the stuff. No, but I goosebumps, man, because it was like it was captivating. It was true. It was great. We do have a question for you here. I haven't read this yet, so I'm popping this up here. I have no idea what it says. Question for John: did he do all his introspection while over there? I'm assuming over there is overseas, or did this happen after you got back home? Because I'm reading it for people who aren't watching the video when we release this on Spotify and Apple and stuff like that. So the question is for John: did you do all this introspection while you were over there, overseas, or did it happen after you got back home? Because I personally haven't witnessed any of my buddies having these afterlife thoughts while we were still stuck in it.
So I don't know. I think since salvation in 2001, I just kind of changed. I was a different human, and what this different human is I happen to be extremely philosophical and theological, and so introspection and I'm high on analysis. I am a skeptical, analytical guy, so I'm a hard sell. That's why I look at the cultural stuff, and I don't just optimistically rosy sunshine and butterflies call it like I wish it was. I am shackled to what I believe is capital T truth. That's why I don't really have much desire to be real spiritual or real religious per se. I actually just care about real truth. 2 + 2 = 4. Maybe you don't like the answer, but that's what the math ends up equaling. Universe can't create itself. It'd have to already exist to do so. So there must be something outside of the natural world that caused the natural world. That's supernatural. If we believe in supernatural, then God makes good sense. And anyway, I can back my way logically into this stuff, and everything is a deduction from there. But to help me out in all of this stuff, whether I'm reading Bible or like the book of Ecclesiastes, which is just hardcore, all of this stuff. I even quote the book of Ecclesiastes and all this stuff. And so, or reading, all kinds of different philosophical works. So I'm extremely broad in what I've read. And so all of it's just helped me on my journey. But I've been highly introspective for the last 20 years or so.
Nice. Guys, if you have any questions for John, I remind you in the comments, if you have any questions, ask them. I would encourage you all to go grab this. And there's obviously, if you just listen to this man talk for the last hour, there's insights in there and things that we need to highlight and circle and ponder and contemplate, right? One of my favorite quotes, I think I share almost anytime I talk, is, you need to be willing to give up who you are today for who you could become tomorrow.
I like that. That's great.
And to do that, you need to change the way you look at the world. You need to change the way you think. And the past doesn't equal the future. You just need to contemplate and weigh and consider. That's a true sign of intelligence. John, what is, for people new to you, best way to follow you, reach you? You're on all the censored platforms, right?
Yeah.
Doing, it's funny because, I posted something pretty provocative yesterday on Instagram 2 days ago, and then I deleted it the next day. And I said, I'm not going to fucking waste this on Instagram. I'm like, I'm just going to send it to me. It's funny you said that. This is going to go to my newsletter list.
Yeah.
Best place for people to subscribe to everything you do, is it the website, the main website?
Website's great. If people wanted to really be involved with what we're doing, the best thing you could do is go to our website. TheWarriorPoetWay.com will get you there, or WarriorPoetSociety.com, whatever. But you go to our website and sign up for our newsletter. And that way, if we have your email address, big tech can't take you away from us. We're not going to spam you or anything else that. If like I have restrictions on my staff of how much we can even message you. Like, no, don't bother about all this stuff. Hit them once a week or twice a week on this kind of stuff. And so
right.
That's the best thing, because I'd rather not big tech shadow banning. So you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll hear more of John, and then you follow me, and then you never get a notification again. The best place though on social is probably Twitter. It is the freest place currently. That has a huge market share. So somebody else could say, hey, we got this other thing, promote blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, it's not public square. It's too small. And so out of all the big tech stuff, Twitter's probably the best place. I'm John Lovell 275.
Put that back up, Lisa.
There you go. Yep, that's it.
There you go. So guys, write that down. I'm trying to grow my Twitter account too, only because of with Elon buying it and some of the stuff. And, even though there's some suspicious things or I'm creating that,
surely
it still is more of a free space where there's things on there that just aren't being shadow banned like they are on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. Guys, Elisa, put up the website again. And do we have the Warrior Poet website? Not this one. Do we have the other one?
That'll work. It redirects the website, and that ends up being a page on our website. So,
okay.
Or the WarriorPoetWay.com works great. Everybody's got it. They're like, come on, move.
Right. So, guys, go sign up for the newsletter. Go, and I'm telling you, go get the book, and that's available on the website. So go there anyhow. So get the newsletter, get the book, do that stuff, and become a better man, or human, or female. There's only two genders, by the way. So,
correct. Yes.
So just to become a better human. Okay, dude, anything that you wish we had talked about or anything I asked you, we're going to get off and you go, man, I wish we had gone down this rabbit hole. Is there anything else you want to share?
No, it's just the nature of interviews. You're supposed to ask me stuff, but I wanted to hear more from you.
Right? Oh,
But that's the way the interview.
we'll do
But
that.
man, I hope our paths cross soon, so we can hang out. I think I'm going to the next, couple gun shows and whatnot. So if you're there, I'd love to get in touch ahead of time. Let's grab a dinner, a sit down. Maybe you bring your bride. I always bring mine to those things. But
Yeah, she hates traveling now, but I'll see. Depends on the location. If it's SHOT Show or
yeah,
Vegas or whatever. Well, the show always costs me way more money if I bring my wife.
mm,
Uh, and I got to maybe like hide her wallet or something. But
yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, I just got an email yesterday from a group that might want me out in Atlanta to do some private training for them. So if that happens, I will hit you up and see if you're
Yes,
not traveling the world, and we can get together there.
sounds good, man.
And,
Yeah, absolutely.
and anytime you want to hear me talk, just call me up. I love talking.
Sounds
Uh,
good. I could do that.
John, it was so good to do this. Thank you for sharing your time with my audience. Guys, if as always, I don't do the whole, this show is brought to you by, this protein powder and this bed and this. I don't do any of that stuff. We're not monetized. If you dig it, share it with your friends, tag it, comment, follow us on YouTube before that becomes, not the place to be. And share the message. Get John's message out there.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, everyone. Be safe. John, hang on a sec.